Hi there and welcome back to my Tekkit world, or at least the version in which I created the Christmas lights. Now I won't be keeping this version and you'll see why when you see the devastation of the base I had to inflict in order to fit everything in. You'll also notice, unfortunately, probably a fair degree of lag. See that down to 7 frames a second? This world has problems, and before Christmas I had created a number of videos explaining those problems and the fact that I may end up having to give up on this world because it is broken. I've addressed that partly by downgrading to the 64 pixel wide version of the texture pack, which has allowed it to at least be usable vaguely, but mostly it's horrible and yeah, can't quite get my head around it. I may post a video explaining the scope of the problem. I did create a fair number before Christmas. So anyway, this is the contraption put together for the Christmas lights, and you can see once you're in here with the door closed just how much of the space this took up in order to fit it in, and the amount of devastation of the base I had to inflict in order to get this thing built. Now, it could have been done a bit tighter, didn't need to destroy such swathes of the floor as I did, but time was pressing, Christmas wasn't going to wait, so had to get it done. Okay, so this is it. It's basically the lamps there, which are moved by the frames, which are controlled by the frame motors in almost the same way as the door, but vertically rather than horizontally. Each one of these lamps needs to be connected to at least one of the frame elements. So for instance, that frame component there would be able to grab that lamp, and that lamp, but it wouldn't be able to grab these two diagonally, which means you need the one below it as well. So each of the lamps has to have at least one block of frame next to it in order to move it. So for instance, that block there, that lamp there, is not held by that frame or that frame, so it needs a frame element next to it, which works quite well with the H, because similarly that block there is not held by that frame or that frame. So just by putting one extra frame in between, you could hold the both of those extra lamps. So the way I worked this out is each lamp was put in place first to spell out the message, and then I went round figuring out what's the minimum number of frame elements needed to hold each of those lamps by at least one of the frame blocks. I then extended those frame blocks from the front 2 squares back. That was to allow this layer in between, which was for the wiring to light up the lamps. And I use this jacketed cable here because it doesn't need to connect or lay on any surface in order to move between the blocks. So it takes up the space itself. It doesn't have to have a surface on which to be placed. So that was great. And then this here is where the signal eventually gets into all that cable. So down at the bottom, as all this extends, eventually this part of the frame here, I think it's that part there, those 2 sections there, will line up with this wire here, and we'll get the signal from this lever. That's the word, I forgot the word lever, bizarre, in order to light all the lamps. So once this is extended, don't need to actually program anything, it's just by spatial arrangements. That wire will eventually touch this wire, connect, and the signal will get to all the lamps at the front. So how does it determine whether it's going up? This wire over here is the bluetricity which came from all these solar cells. Probably didn't need that many, but I wasn't prepared to wait for them to all charge up, so I plonked in a load. That charges this battery box, which is a staging post, into this one, which then distributes it to those 2, which are the ones that it's actually drawing from, and then to the frame motors there. So all the white wire is for the bluetricity. Had to move it down here because the frame itself, this door started grabbing the wire as well. Everything was just too close, it was all a pain. This moves a lot simpler than the main door. Rather than having it computer controlled, I made it much simpler this time. So it just uses timers this time. Didn't want to do that. Okay, So let's just grab one of those again, put that back there. So the timer is set to, get it right, 0.85 second pulses, and it's off because this lever is providing a signal. So as soon as that lever's off, this would start pulsing at that rate. That would start sending the signal to that frame motor in order to push this down. It can't descend any further because I've put a block down at the bottom to give it a limit that it can go no further. So when it's at the right height, the thing can keep ticking, the motor will keep trying to step, but the frame itself can't move any further. And similarly, when it extends up, this one will have the redstone signal removed from here. This one will start pulsing again at the 0.85 of a second interval rate. That frame motor starts stepping, pushes the whole frame up, and there's a block in the way somewhere down there. I can't remember which one it is now. This was all done before Christmas, and I'm recording this much later, which stops it ascending too far, and that also coincides with getting the signal from the redstone lamp. So just simply by turning off the redstone signal that's in this yellow wire, this will start ascending, and at the top of its ascent it will turn the lights on. So it all becomes a single signal in order to get the whole thing to raise and switch on in sequence. So the only bit that was needed to arrange after that was to get the door to open first to get out of the way, and then to turn this signal off. And for that I use the computer. This yellow wire I repurposed from the input that was there to tell when this door was fully closed, and I use that now as an output instead to control the ascending lights, and the computer program was put in here. It's called Xmas. It's a loop which simply waits for any bundled cable input, and as soon as it gets a bundled cable input, it calls the code to open this door, and it now opens further than ever because this part of the frame extends way further than the door was originally intended to expose. So I had to do some quick landscaping of the surface of the lake in order to allow this extra 4 or 5 blocks here of all these lights to be able to ascend. But what that meant was this wall had to go, because when that main door opens as far as it now needs to, it comes all the way out into here, into this area, which it was never intended to do. So I had to decimate this whole wall in order to free up enough space for that. So if we have a look at this running, if I run the Xmas program, which is the one that's waiting for the input, get the wireless signal and transmit it, hopefully, there we go. So that's all it needs now for this to have started the main door opening, as you can see, and once that has finished opening, it will then start this ascending simply by turning off the yellow wire here, which will start that timer ticking, and the whole thing will begin to ascend. Now, horrible lag, I can't even fly now because it's lagging so much. There we go. Can't do the double press when it's lagging that badly, and I need the rain off because that doesn't help. And I'll turn the lights on now so you can see what's happening. So you'll be able to see as this ascends eventually, once the door is opened, that there we go, everything starts moving. So the redstone signal has been turned off by the computer to the timer. The timer is now ticking, sending pulses at a regular interval to the frame motor, which is now stepping, and at the right point in the ascent, this red wire here, there we go, must have run out of power briefly, will make contact with the red wire there and light up all the lamps. Yeah, it doesn't seem like much when you look at it like this, but this was a pain. Let me just turn that ticking off so this is not so annoying, at least to me. You may not be able to hear it. Oops. There we go. So that puts the signal back on the yellow wire, which will stop that ticking on there. So yeah, this took ages. First of all, I wanted to have multiple things ascending from the ground. I had an idea of a Christmas tree and a snowman, and then this bit coming up from the ground. But took way longer than I ever expected. Oh, hello, that looks even better with the frame invisible. Why can't it do that for real? Yeah, there is actually frame there, but it's decided not to render it. Would have been great if I could have pulled that off. Anyway, yes, so I had lots of attempts at how to build this. Really was a pain to come up with a way to have the lamps and the wire and the frame all move without having lots of junk in the way. If I show you in the test world that I did, one of the experiments I'd done in order to look at this, where have I put it? Over there. Yeah, I was originally thinking of something like this, but I didn't want the frame in front. So all of this was intended to look like that. So I've got these glass panels so the frame was more invisible. So I wanted it like this, with a message with just blocks on and none of the frame visible. But in order to move these blocks, you have to have a frame block next to them, and you need wire next to them to light them up. So my original idea of having a full screen effectively that rising from the ground with a picture on it was thwarted because there was no way to get the frame to hold the blocks at the front. So eventually, after spending a few days pondering that, I came up with that idea of having the frame in between the blocks and only putting the letters in, which at least allowed me to do the Christmas message, if not the Christmas pictures. So yeah, that's it for that world. As you can see, horrible lag. I may do a separate video explaining the scope of the problem that I've had with that, but in the meantime, I've gone off at a bit of a tangent. I've started a Feed the Beast episodes, and I'll be uploading the videos, the first videos from that soon as well. The extra mods that are available in that and the later version of Minecraft is just too tempting. Yep. But I'm probably still going to continue with that previous world a little because I've got that big lift shaft to create and various other things that I've started on, which I want to finish now I've started. And I have done a few bits and tweaks that have helped with the lag that keep it usable. But generally, yeah, it's not looking great. So I don't think that world's going to be much longer lived. It's got problems with the rendering. Texture pack is definitely related. If you switch back to the default, it's better. I'll show all that in another video anyway. That's it for now. Just wanted to show you how I've done the Christmas lights if you're interested, and see you later. Bye. Cheers.